Oh, I tell you what, Longy, I'm ready to sit on the beach, get my luau on, and finish the season with a few drinks in hand.
Job's not over, job's not done.
What's going on, guys? Bergs and Longy here from the Casual Athlete, and before the season is done, we have some business to attend to. We are giving out the Cashies this year, our inaugural end of season awards. We are so excited. It's been a great 2023 season, and the way this video is going to work today, guys, we've got 4 guys per category. You'll see them in just a moment. Before we get on to our first category, we have a little announcement from Longy.
Yes, a new sponsor. We've got legalids.com. They're part of the Casual Athlete family now, and they're giving 2 free hats to today's video. So you can win a hat right now or halfway through the video with 2 questions we're going to ask. First one here, first chance to win a hat. I want you to comment below who you think is going to win the grand final. And whoever gets the most likes on their comment is going to win that free hat delivered to their door, worth about $50.
Hey, fair enough. I might comment myself. I think I need a new hat. Been rocking the black hat for a long time now.
Mate, you need a new hat. Look at this thing. All right, I'm desperate.
It's brilliant. We had a lot of likes in our recent video about it as well. Please make sure that you keep watching for our tipping video this week, guys. We will be doing a grand final preview with a tip and prediction from Longy and myself as well. Now we will get into our first category for the Cashies Award for Prop of the Year.
This is very exciting, and look, I think it was a year of props. You look at the top teams, you look at how Brisbane dominated, the Warriors, the Panthers. These are teams that are forward dominated. And some of the teams are disappointed. Guys like Souths, the Roosters, even the Storm. Lacked a bit in the middle. It was a year of props, so it's a very important award, and we're leading with it. First up, the nominations are Joseph Tarpanay, Adam Fanua-Blake, Payne Haas, and Tino.
I put up a poll on our YouTube channel, and this became very quickly a 2-horse race. It was either you're in the Payne Haas camp or you're in the Adam Fanua-Blake camp. And while Joe Tarpanay and Tino are fantastic players, and I think they contribute a lot to their teams winning games, especially Tino. When he was off the field this year, it was very noticeable for the Gold Coast Titans, and it's probably why they lost a lot of second half games in the league this year. But Adam Fanua-Blake, probably the most creative guy in the comp at the prop position at the moment. And then you've got Payne Haas, the workhorse. He plays 70 minutes every week, and he's virtually unstoppable. It's got to be these 2 guys for me.
Do you want to hear an insane stat on Payne Haas? 10 missed tackles in the regular season.
That is ridiculous.
That's absurd. Considering he's making 70 minutes a game, he didn't miss many games this year. That is nothing, right? So look, he's fantastically reliable. He did win the fan vote as well, which is pretty exciting. But look, the winner, we're not democracy here.
No, we're not.
We're going to make our own call. And for us, the winner, your prop of the year, 2023, at the Cashies, Adam Fanua-Blake.
Bam! Let's go!
Yeah, look, he was pure creativity. He led the Warriors right up the table. He was that leader in that pack, along with Tohu Harris. Adam Fanua-Blake had a year where he stepped up from being a 50-minute guy to a 70-minute guy and maintained that explosiveness. So I couldn't be more impressed.
Now, what we will do is get into a fun category that everyone loves at any award show. Let's look at some young bucks.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how cool these guys were.
Yeah, this year we probably expected them to play, maybe not. If you're on any Supercoach or fantasy waiver wires, these guys were available for a long period of time. And it's the Rookie of the Year Cashies Award this year. I love it. I'm a big fan of my rookies. I love keeping up to date with some young players coming through, and there were a lot this year.
Yeah, look, and like the guys we have available here, they stepped up. They were guys who, some of them stepped into challenging situations in teams that were not necessarily doing it easy. And they were very mature players. I'm going to draw attention to a guy like Jacob Preston. He stepped into that Bulldogs pack where Kickow wasn't available. Luke Thompson wasn't available. You lost Paul Vaughan from last year. They were in a really tricky spot, and he managed to cement himself as a premier back rower in this competition.
Well, with that being said, the nominations for our Rookie of the Year this year are Jacob Preston, Alofiano Khan-Pereira, Jareem Buller from the West Tigers, and Sunia Taruva from the Penrith Panthers.
For these guys, look, Jareem Buller, he stepped into a position where the Tigers were swapping fullbacks constantly. No one could nail that down. And he looked like a gun. in that spot. So I'm more impressed by that than I am by someone who, maybe walks into the Penrith side and gets it done. Taruva had a great year, but winger at Penrith, I haven't seen many guys fail at that job. So I give more credit to a guy like Buller there. We then look at Cam Pereira. Look, Cam Pereira is a freak. He individually created a lot of tries. He's one of the best finishers in the game. I reckon he's just going to be one of those guys. I mean, look, the Titans always have wingers like that. Like, remember David Mead and Kevin Gordon back in the day?
Yes, I do.
They've got those guys. And look, Preston's so mature. For me, I'm leaning Preston, but I'm a back row myself, so there's a bit of bias there.
Yeah, there's always a bit of fun, a bit of excitement once you nail down a starting spot as well. Out of the 4 guys that we had in this category, Jacob Preston won the fan vote with 60% of the vote. That surprised me a little bit. He wouldn't have actually been my choice, but you have gone with Jacob Preston as well, which means Jacob Preston, who is actually ineligible to win Rookie of the Year this year for the Dally M Awards. Shame on you, NRL. We don't criticize. We don't care if you punch someone in the face during a game and got 7 weeks. If you were good enough, you were good enough.
If anything, that helps. In my eyes, he was tough. He represented the doggies well, and he deserves this award.
And he made Andrew Davey quit. So, Jacob Preston is our Rookie of the Year this year, and I cannot think of a better bloke to give this to.
Congratulations, Presto. Look, next up, we're going to go into the 5/8 of the year. So this one's a little less exciting in my eyes. I think there were more rookies that stood up. I think the 5/8 position was a little quiet this year.
It was.
You had guys like Dylan Brown sort of missing games. Cam Munster had a bit of a quieter year. Like a lot of these guys, Cody Walker, Souths fell apart. It's a bit of a tricky spot.
There were some standouts this year, I will say that. I think a guy that maybe narrowly missed our top 4 was Tom Dearden. I think a lot of people would have expected to maybe see him this year. But again, I took the Cowboys not making the finals away from him. It's one of those things where he probably didn't replicate the form that he had last year. None of the top teams, the 5/8 is their outstanding player. It's one of those things where maybe the 5/8 role is regressing a little bit.
I think it was just a blip. I think it was a blip. But look, the fans definitely backed your opinion of who's the top team, who's their 5/8. They went with Ezra Mam for that role, which is an incredible honour for him. He's a guy who he came into the league in the last couple of years, and he's cemented a spot there. He's incredibly creative, super quick, plays perfectly alongside Adam Reynolds. I'm not super against that sort of vote. Who would you have given the vote to for 5/8 of the year, though? Out
of the nominations that we had this year, we had Luke Keary, Cody Walker, Cam Munster, and Ezra Mam. It's tough for me because, again, I think it's a bit of a 2-horse race. And while Cody statistically had a very good year, and I actually thought Luke Keary had a bit of a resurgence this year on the back of some injuries, getting the Roosters into the finals. No one really thought that was possible with about 5 rounds to go. I kind of had to go with 2 guys who made the top 4, and Cam Munster, again, still a very consistent season, but it faded away late. But the guy who has impressed me since he started last year and has just gotten better this year next to a guy like Adam Reynolds, and his combination with Reece Walsh has been outstanding this year. I had to go with Ezra Mam.
I don't hate it. See, personally, my vote was on Munster, but that's a bit of a case of the best player every year. He's just that guy. He's the 5/8 of the year for the last 5 years. But
we're not going to reward complacency, are we?
No, apparently not, because the winner of this year's 5/8 of the year, we kind of gave it away, is Ezra Mam.
Woo! We love the young upstart here, and I'm so happy for Ezra, and hopefully he can continue this form moving into next season as well.
Look, it's been a great final series for him as well. He's been fantastic. So yeah, congratulations to him.
Now we move on to the bulldozers, the line runners, and the hard workers. We've got the second rowers coming up. The 4 nominees that we have this year, we've
got some guys.
David Fifita, Britton Nakora, Hamole Olakawatu, and Nat Butcher has made it into our list this year. What do you think of these 4 guys, and who are the players that may have missed out?
There were some guys who really rose up the rankings for me this year. So let's go through them one by one. Dave Fifita, he found a level of consistency that we haven't seen from him in any season of his career. So a lot of tough runs, a lot of improvement in his work rate, better defensively. He benefited from Kieran Foran being there as well. For me, it was a career year for Dave Fifita, and he would be getting a lot more accolades if he was on a stronger side. it's the fact that the Titans are a bit inconsistent, that glow is kind of wearing off on him, but I'm sort of seeing past that. Nakora and Olakau'atu are really interesting. I believe between them they missed like 10 minutes of footy this year.
Yeah, I think Olakau'atu just pipped him at the post. Olakau'atu played every minute of every possible game this year.
That's
which
crazy.
is ridiculous. For a guy who does what he does week in and week out, basically bashes players and runs over the top of people. I cannot take that away from him. And Nakora has kind of fashioned himself into the best line runner in the NRL. He hits the hole better than anyone I think I've seen for a long period of time. Now, the fourth guy on this list, I put Nat Butcher. And a lot of people really wanted to see another guy from Penrith by the name of Liam Martin. They believe that he should have gotten into that spot. I'm sorry to say that Liam Martin, while being very good, he played 12 games this year. I had to give it to Nat just purely because he was the hardest working player for the Roosters. You could see each and every week when they were struggling, he was the guy not giving up. He was the guy making 45, 50 tackles a game, and he can score the odd try as well.
He was explosive. No, 100%. He was a safety valve for the halves. It was a mixed bag in terms of the halves this year as well. So I totally agree. If we were looking at the best back rower in the comp on just talent, where Cam Munster would have been 5'8", Liam Martin would be in the conversation for back rower. But for this season, I agree with you. They played with and without Liam Martin. He had a fantastic Origin series, by the way, but that doesn't really count for this award. So, no, I'm with you there.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where you've got to give it to the highest performing player. And with that being said, the fan vote went to David Fifita, and both of us also voted for our winner, David Fifita.
Well deserved, mate.
Yeah, I think he is just a powerhouse. He's one of those guys who can turn a game. And I think if you were to have him in your dream team this year, he would easily be one of the best players
I drafted him in fantasy. Supercoach, made grand finals in basically every draft we're in. So, no, he was that guy.
Moving on to a bit of a different kind of category this year. And we actually are moving away from positions for a moment to talk about the best signing.
I mean, let's talk about signings, man, because there were quite a few teams that slid up and down the ladder unexpectedly, and a lot of it you can put down to signings. So the guys we have here on best signing, some really talented guys. We've got Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. We have Api Coruscant, Jermaine Hopgood at Parramatta, and Reece Walsh at the Broncos. Miles, which couple of these guys really stand out for you in terms of making a difference?
It's tough because I saw a lot of difference in Api Coruscant in the middle part of the season. Hamiso to start the season was phenomenal. But Jermaine Hopgood and Reece Walsh for me were just two of the guys that were almost irreplaceable. You look at the year that Hopgood had, he came into a team where he probably wasn't expected to play as many minutes as he did, but with the amount of injuries that Para had, he had to step into that role and flourished. Like, he absolutely took over the middle, offloads galore. He was a great pickup in either fantasy or Supercoach as well, if you had him. And Reece Walsh has turned the Broncos into a grand final threat, championship winner.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at this, right? Because 3 of these teams didn't make the finals. So for mine, if you're looking at the best signing of the year, it's a bit hard not to see what was the team's result, what was the impact on the team. Jermaine Hopgood came into a Para side where they'd lost some forwards, but to be the signing of the year, they'd need to have maintained their level for mine. A guy like Hamiso, signing of the year for the first half of the year, absolutely. The fade, and he was moving to center a bit towards the end. That sort of knocked me off that train personally. So for my vote, I was looking at like Coruscant even. I just don't think there was the consistency there this year. Great player. I'm Reece Walsh through and through.
Yeah.
I feel like you voted Reece Walsh as well, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You did.
I had to give it to him.
And the fans also went Reece Walsh. So your winner for the signing of the year is legendary Broncos fullback Reece Walsh.
Yeah, I had to give it to the kid. He's been, he stepped up into the Maroons jersey this year as well, unseated Ponga. Ponga had a good comeback to the second half of the year, but he's just electric, isn't he?
He's great, but who wasn't great, mate? Who was the worst signing this year? What are you thinking?
Now we've got to deliver the bad news. Unfortunately, we've got 4 guys who probably weren't the best in terms of maybe a money pickup or a fit exactly.
Some of these are bad luck though. Like these are all pretty good players who they had a tough time.
Yeah, so our nominations for the worst signing this year, Charlie Staines, Josh Hodgson, Tarek Sims, and Viliami Kikau. Unfortunately, I struggled to put Kikau in there, but when he played, he didn't exactly have that kind of impact that you expect from Viliami. It was almost like he was devoid of a bit of hope. Maybe losing that Penrith swagger kind of takes it out of you a little bit.
It is hard. I mean, he did have that injury about 4 weeks into the season as well. So for mine, he came back really strong. When he did come back towards the end of the year, he looked really good. I think he'll end up being a pretty good signing for the Dogs long term. I wouldn't even consider him personally for this award because it was just injury, right? He just didn't play the minutes. They're not quite complete as well. They've brought Sexton in at 7 now. 7 was the problem for the Dogs. Yeah. They're Crichton next year too. There's a bit going on there. I think he will prove to be a pretty good signing in the long term. For these other guys, I mean, Charlie Staines is a bit of a project. He was in at fullback before Buller, and I thought he played all right, but Buller's on a different level to him.
Yeah.
Hodgson, that's a tough one. That's a tough one as a Para fan.
But Viliami Kikau, he had injuries too.
I think Hodgson was a worse signing, not because of anything Hodgson did, but because Para gave up Reid Marnie to make that signing. And you've got to look at that wider picture.
Yeah, Reid Marnie and Papali potentially.
Yeah, I mean, Hodjo was only $450K a year, apparently. Reid was $600, so I don't think Papa came into... I want to believe that. Hodjo's medically retired now. Look, cracking career. He was one of the top 2 hookers in the comp for a long time. So, legend. And then Tarek Sims, did the Storm pay him much?
For 1 year. I think it was more of a 1 year rental than anything. He wants to continue playing there as well, something that I read pretty recently. But I just think he didn't really fit or wasn't exactly
I'm not sure
what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, I have no idea what was going on there because... You'd look at their team some weeks and think, oh yeah, he's going to come off the bench and play 60.
Yeah,
he needs to. And yeah, he just wasn't quite his normal self because he's normally so destructive. And he's normally one of those guys he's a fringe origin sort of guy. And they needed someone to step up in that pack. And I don't know. Anyway, look, what did the fans vote for here?
So the fans actually gave it to Josh Hodgson.
Was it by a lot?
It was a lot. It was maybe 66% of the vote there. At the time of recording, I think it's 66%. But we also gave it to Josh Hodgson.
Tough guy.
Unfortunately, we just didn't really see the connection there. We thought, when I initially heard this signing was happening, and we talked about it in our season preview, and I know it hurts you. It's really unfortunate. You backed him to the hill. You wanted to see the positivity there. I was very against this move, and unfortunately, I've been proven right. And I didn't really want it to happen to Para because
look. You can't really take me too seriously about Parramatta. I remember when we did that video, I sat down and said, I want to believe, so I'm going to just tell you that I believe until I do believe. And I never did believe. But
I think 4 weeks in, you kind of knew it was...
But there was a moment where this was not the worst signing, right? So when they signed him, it was before the ACL injury.
You're holding on.
There's a world where if he came in and he was his regular 2019 Hodgson self, then that would be a great signing. But yeah, no, I get you. It's an unfortunate one because he's a cracking player. Fantastic career for Josh Hodjo.
Yeah.
Let's move into the winger of the year because this is actually a super fun one.
And I love this guy.
Some of the wingers this year though, I'll throw some of the names at you for winger of the year, and we're missing guys here who had cracking seasons as well. So winger of the year nominations, we've got Greg Marzu, Darwin Watenius-Lesniak, Jermaine Asako, and Dom Young. So firstly, that Knights winger pairing, and you've just roasted me for the Hodjo thing, so I'm going to say it right now. I made a TikTok at the start of this year saying that Marzu and Young, Marzu not yet in the starting team, by the way, would be and Young dropped early as well. I called that they would be the top try-scoring winger pairing in the comp, and they were. So they've been so explosive for the Knights.
They've been killing it. I think that those 4 names are actually the top 4 try scorers this year. I like to single out a guy like Jermaine Asako. Outcast from the Broncos. He, basically got told, "You're not good enough to play here. We don't want you."
Yeah.
And the Dolphins said, "Oh, swing him here. I'll take him." And it was one of those things where he had every opportunity and he delivered, man. He came in and he kicked goals as well at a very high clip. I think with Sarko, he is so athletic and he is just a great finisher, and it was really good to see him this year develop his tackle breaking, get a bit of confidence back, and just go foot to the floor.
Yeah, he's a freak. The thing that impressed me was they'd have games where they were losing by a ton, and he's still creating. So he wasn't a fair weather winger. He was a winger who made a difference in results, which is cracking. The other guy there, Wateni Zalesniak. Again, think of his years at the Dogs, where he was fringe first grade almost, and viewed that way. And then he goes to the Warriors, and he had a season and a lot of individual tries where he's running at brick walls of forwards and just bursting through them to score tries. Like, he's not just coasting over.
The guy produced some magic this year as well. I can remember the flick pass that he gave to Sean Johnson earlier this year, or the tries that he has scored this year. Some of the most athletic finishes I think I've ever seen from any winger. Not saying that I can't take that away from any of the guys on this list. Maybe Dom Young's in that category as well. Just some outrageous finishes this year where you're like, there's no way he's getting that ball down, and he does, and you're just like, you got to basically bow down to the master. And this year it was very tough for me to vote for a good winger. We're missing a couple too from this list.
Yeah, it was a year of wingers, 100%.
Year of props, year of wingers.
Yeah. But look, I'm going to go through some of the votes here. So the fan vote, it was pretty close. There was a lot of guys sort of getting votes there. The fans went with Wateni Zalesniak. And you can't blame them. Up the wires. Wait a minute, we're getting a call in right now.
Put him on.
Hey, Longy and Bergs, mate. I love your show. Calling in here from Waikato, New Zealand. Hey, up the wires, brother.
Daddy, please tell him up the wires.
Up the wires, brother.
Up the wires.
Up the wires.
Alright. Thank you.
Okay.
That was beautiful.
Gee.
Let's go to Hooker of the Year. Oh wait, have we announced the award? I'm really distracted.
No, we
All right.
have not announced who the winger of the year is going to
So
be.
your winger of the year. Your winger of the year. Dallin Wateni Zalesniak. You'll be very happy. What was his name? Jerome?
DWZ, bro. Moving on to Hooker of the Year. Again, probably one of those categories where it lacked a little bit of outstanding player. I think it's one of those things where the hooker position may have taken a bit of a blip as well, kind of similar to 5'8", but it's not been as important this year. I want to be positive about these guys because some of these guys did have a great year. And our nominations are Wade Egan from the New Zealand Warriors. We have Blake Brayley from the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. Harry Grant from the Melbourne Storm. And Coruscant from the Tigers.
Yeah.
If you look at these four guys, who stands out?
I mean, I'm going to look at two of these guys here and say, so Wade Egan and Blake Brayley both took a massive leap, right? So they went from being sort of middle of the road hookers to, Wade Egan, some injury challenges, but he was a guy who was constantly threatening in attack. He benefited from that forward pack they had there. He made a massive leap in my eyes. And Blake Brayley as well. Much more creative, much more solid in defense. He sort of seems to mature this year. So as much as we're not looking at, a Cam Smith this year, I think we saw a lot of guys make that leap into the semi-elite hooker category. Other than that, look, Api Coruscant, he was a leader for the Tigers, which, you weren't sure if that was going to happen when they won the comp last year.
Turned into a pretty decent goal kicker as well.
He's a good player, man. And then Harry Grant is just Harry Grant. Like, even when he's sort of playing just regular footy for him, he's on a different level. A guy I'd throw in is Reece Robson. He started the year really well and then sort of cooled off a bit, but I think he'll be back next year too.
It was tough for me to keep Reece out, actually. I had him or Blake Brayley I was tossing up, and I basically gave the edge to Blake Brayley because the Sharks made the finals. So I think it definitely goes against you if you don't make the finals. And Blake Brayley got actually decimated in our fan vote this year. He got less than 5% of the vote here, and I think for a guy who makes nearly 50 tackles a week, it's pretty unfortunate.
Plays his role well. Yeah.
Fan vote actually went to Wade Egan for this category, and
Up the wires.
do we agree with them?
I think he made a big leap. I think he was one of the most offensively threatening guys on this list. I personally just can't go past Harry Grant. it's a bit like Munster for me, where they weren't at their best, but they were still the best. So, yeah, for me, it's Harry Grant.
Exactly. And with that being said, we've given the winning to Harry Grant.
Harry Grant, bravo. And now I want to hear what was your favourite moment of the season this year. So, League Lids again, leaguelids.com. They've sponsored this category. A free hat will be won by someone who comments below what your favourite moment of the year was.
And we're actually going to get our editor, Jacob, to take a look at your favourite moments of the year. Please comment below. We'll get him to search them on YouTube, and he is going to decide who gets the free hat. I cannot wait for that. He is not the biggest football fan in the world, but he's sure happy to look through all those videos.
You know what? He's going to read the descriptions, so be descriptive. If you're not descriptive, then he might not understand what you're talking about. But no, awesome. Let's move into our next award here, and look, we've got a few awards to cover before we get to the MVP, the Cashies,
the ultimate
superstar.
Cashy.
Whew, yeah, but lock of the year. Let's power through this one because there's some guys here who they were powering through everyone this year. So we've got 4 nominations at the lock of the year spot. We've got Big Tohu Harris for the Warriors. We have Pat Carrigan at the Broncos. We got Corey Horsburgh from the Raiders, who took a massive leap this year, and Jermaine Hopgood. So these are 4 guys who stepped up. All of them took a leap on last year. All of them were better than their previous year. They're not guys who are declining, they're guys who are rising. And for Tohu Harris, at his age, that's surprising that he just continues to get better.
Again, we're going with a non-Penrith themed awards night. No, I'm kidding. Jose Yo is probably the one that doesn't make this list, and it probably doesn't make it look as attractive as possible. But I thought these guys had phenomenal years, and Corey Horsburgh really changed the way he plays the game in terms of becoming that starting lock for the Raiders instead of a off the bench guy. And then Hopgood again stepped into a role where he was not required at the start of the season, but excelled in, for a young kid to come in and do that. Phenomenal. Tohu Harris as well, just a great captain out there. Yep. What happened with the fan vote on this one? Just because I think it went to one guy and one guy alone.
How many? What percentage?
It was, I think, something like 78%.
Oh my God.
For Patrick Carrigan.
Wow. Well, Paddy Carrigan's looking good.
So we're going to give the win to Patrick Carrigan. How about that?
Can't argue with that. 78% of people can't be wrong.
No, he absolutely killed it this year, and he's really turning into a leader up there at the Broncos. I know he's already been the captain before when he was 22, but he's forming a great 1-2 punch with him and Haas. Yep. Moving on to one of my favourite positions this year, the centre position. The link man often gets overlooked sometimes, and I think this year there were some really good centres. Some guys stepped up from what they were last year. I can think of, Dane Gagai, a guy on this list that had an awful year last year, and this year he's absolutely killing it. I think players took leaps as well in Matt Tomoko, Herbie Farnworth, and Isaac Tungo as well.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Isaac Tungo in particular, I had questions about how that edge was going to operate without William Kikau in the team. There were times where Taylor May was on that edge as well in the previous year, so I had questions about whether he was going to be able to replicate his form. He stepped up to another level, which, guys often don't maintain their form once they lose a guy like Kikau on their edge. So, I'm really impressed by him. Herbie Farnworth, he's off to the Dolphins next year. He was my vote for best centre in the comp this year.
He just killed every aspect of being a centre. He actually, among these guys up here, he has actually the best tackle efficiency as well. So he is, as you said, rock solid in defence.
So who'd the fans vote for?
So the fans voted for Herbie Farnworth.
Good
and
choice.
So did we. We gave the win to Herbie Farnworth. 65% of the vote from the fans as well. So Herbie was outstanding this year.
Now you've put me on the most disappointing team, which I feel a bit mean because I think you also made me do most disappointing signing. But,
no, I made you do best signing.
You're right. I just talked about it a lot because of okay. Most disappointing team. Look, there were a lot of options for this nomination, and the Roosters didn't make this list by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah.
Because if they didn't make the finals, they might have won this award.
They were definitely going to be there.
Yeah. So our nominations for this award are the Parramatta Eels, North Queensland Cowboys, the Manly Seagulls, and the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Now, before we go into it, I do want to say the fans voted for the Rabbitohs. I reckon there's a few layers to this, right? Yep. So if you looked at most disappointing from the last 12 months, you'd probably look at Parramatta and you'd say that team made the grand final and they flopped this year. But
Yeah.
a lot of their disappointment was early in the year. If you looked at the last 3 to 6 months, you'd probably go, South Sydney were favourites to win the comp in round 11. They were first on the table and they didn't make the finals. So they were the biggest disappointment from mid-season. The Cowboys just didn't live up to it at all. And Manly, I don't think Manly had the expectations these other 3 teams had.
No.
So I couldn't give it to them personally.
I think I had to find a fourth team that kind of didn't really live up to the hype. I think you could have
Not the
chucked
Tigers.
You could have, well, you could have chucked the Dogs there. There was a lot of talk about them pre-season.
Yeah.
I think I talked them up too. And, God, they failed massive. They actually finished worse than they did last year as well, the Dogs. So they won the exact same amount of games.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, yes, my team failed, your team failed. We had a great year here.
We really focused on fantasy.
Yeah, I know. It was a
Tipping.
great year here on the channel. We won some money. It was great. We won some fantasy comps. We won tipping comps. But our teams didn't do that well. And you know, I had to put them both here just because of the sadness that we both felt this year.
Yeah.
You said you never really got into the Eels season as a whole.
So with Parramatta, right, we had such a disappointing... Because we got up at 7 a.m. and started watching Para highlights on the grand final day last year.
Yeah.
We went to a bottomless brunch, just got on the beers, all that sort of thing. It was a very good day until the game.
Yeah.
So for me, I came into the season a bit sad about Parramatta, and then they started the year with losses. Just, we had the Madison controversy, we just had a bunch of losses, we had Dylan Brown's controversy. So for mine, I never really recovered from the sadness. Like, they never got my hopes up again to disappoint me. So I wasn't that disappointed. Whereas South Sydney get my vote because they were living the dream in round 11. They just totally flopped in some super winnable games. And then to get knocked out by the Roosters at the end, that would have been a hard night for South
Yeah, it would have been embarrassing.
Yeah, like some plates would have been broken in households.
They just couldn't stop the slide. I think they're actually the first team ever to be leading the comp by round 11 and not make the finals.
Yeah.
So that is something that they can, keep in their trophy case because they
Yep.
won't be winning a comp this year.
Well, they did win something, though, because the winner of this award was the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Yeah. So, very exciting win for them.
And both of us are wiping our brows because it didn't go to either of our teams.
We
So-
just got away with it. Now, look, that one wasn't so surprising. I mean, it was from the mid-season, but I want you to jump in here, Miles, with the most surprising team this year.
Yeah, the most surprising team in a good sense. We're thinking that here it was maybe a team that wasn't expected to do much.
Yep.
They've come in and they've really given the competition a real rev up, a real crack. And there are some teams this year that did that in spades. I think the Roosters, in a way, surprised everyone by making the finals. So that, for me, gave their fans hope, and they actually won a finals game this year. So
I kind of wish you gave that spot to the Dolphins.
Look,
I want to give awards
yeah,
to the Roosters.
I think that the Roosters getting in there, the Dolphins they faded so badly. I just couldn't really see them in there. But the next three are good. We've got the Warriors, the Broncos, and the Knights. I think these three teams maybe not expected to do as well as they did. I think a lot of people I'll go to the Broncos first. A lot of people had the Broncos as a top 8 team. Not many people had them as a minor premiership contender, and that's what they turned into. The Warriors were considered possibly bottom 4. I know we had them in the bottom 4. I may have also had them in the bottom 4. It was just, we didn't see it from a signings perspective, from how they were going to run. Sean Johnson's resurgence. Who saw that coming?
Well,
Absolutely
and
no
Webster.
one.
Webster, unproven coach,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
did a fantastic job.
There was so many moving parts there that should not have worked.
Yeah.
But they did.
Back to New Zealand, though. That's the more I look back on this call, the more I think, look, on paper, the back line wasn't that good. On paper, the spine wasn't that good. But they went back to New Zealand, and I think that lifted them. I think we probably should have seen that coming a bit more. So lesson learned on that one. And look, super have you proven wrong on the Warriors.
Yeah.
The Knights as well. The Knights were a disaster midway through the season. They were a shambles, and Ponga was talking about retirement, and Phoenix Crossland was coming into hooker, and Hastings is in and out injury-wise. Adam Elliott had been signing that had done nothing to that point.
Yeah. Saifidi brothers weren't exactly the powerhouse. Leo Thompson, who was he?
Bright light, yeah.
I think The resurgence of the Knights this year was the most unexpected thing, and in a way, possibly the most surprising. I'm not really giving away who's won the award yet, but to me, because I saw the Knights and I went, oh, okay, yeah. I reckon for their 10-0 run, I would have tipped them twice out of those 10 games.
Yeah. But there were people who did see it. So Dan Ondrassi, in our Supercoach comp, he traded for Kalen Ponga for purely logical reasons. And he won our comp. He beat me in the grand final with Ponga there. So some people did see it coming. Congrats to you if you did. I think the other thing is you look at the back line and how good it was. Both Dom Young and Greg Marzu were dropped this year. Yeah,
arguably the best back five in the comp.
Yeah, but in spite of their form, Kalen Ponga's position was moved. There were times where these guys weren't rated. So what have you got, though, for the fan vote and for the winner here?
The fan vote went to the Waz, and the win went to the Waz.
Up the Waz.
Yeah, I think the Warriors this year were just by far the most unexpected, lovely little present that made the top four. And I can't wait to unwrap that a little bit in our end-of-season reviews that we are going to be doing after the season as well. Yeah.
Juicy. Now let's go into some guys who maybe don't normally win awards. We've got the unsung heroes coming through. I'm going to read you 4 names for this award. We have Jackson Ford, Sebastian Chris from the Raiders there, Blake Laurie at the Dragons, and Scott Sorensen at the Panthers. These guys are getting a bit of hype as the season goes along, but they probably don't get the credit they deserve.
They're just those guys who aren't really seen as the premier player on their team, but came in or may have found themselves in a position where they had to do a job. And it's one of those things where they may have taken a step up and then also they're on a bit of a bad team. And maybe they aren't exactly getting the kind of accolades, as you said. And some of those guys embody this in spades. I think of a guy like Sebastian Chris, who this year no one had playing fullback.
No.
I think for the first 15 rounds, he was doing so well.
Yep.
And I'm going to be honest, Sebastian Chris, I didn't think you could play fullback either. But you showed me that you had the heart and determination to be able to play the position pretty well.
He's just a footballer. He's a footballer. I think he's still better at centre. He's a guy who can score a try. He's very good out there. But he stepped up.
Yeah.
Let's look at Sorensen as well. Sorensen was a fringe guy at the Sharks. He's come into the Panthers system over the last couple of years. He was not going to be a starting edge back rower this year. So you had Liam Martin, you had Luke Garner, the original starter, you had Zach Hosking, who was the backup, and then you had Sorensen fourth in that pecking order, maybe even later than
Tyrone Peachy even.
Yeah.
I think.
The weak-gutted dog.
Shaman Salmon.
He was getting minutes in the back row before Sorensen. I totally forgot his name for a second there. But look, Sorensen has just earned a spot there, and he's a fantastic footy player. So, as a guy like him, my vote personally went to Blake Laurie. And the reason for this is he was in a really tough situation. So you had Jack DeBellin in and out of the team. The Molo brothers were sort of in and out. You had a rotation at hooker, a team where the coach was on the out, the team was not winning. Blake Laurie turned up every week, and I think he played at an Origin level as a prop this season. He won't get that accolade, I think, from the mainstream media, and he probably won't get that selection. But if you put Blake Laurie on a better side, he'd probably get a lot more credit than he does. So for me, it's Blake Laurie 100%, and it's not even that close.
Yeah, I think there's one of those things where he should have made, potentially, with the amount of injuries that we had in the front row this year for Origin, I would have considered him for that role as well. Yeah, and he came to life this year. And it's another category where we've disagreed with the fans because they went with Jackson Ford.
He was great. I mean, I think we had a lot of Warriors and Broncos fans voting, if I'm being honest, just based on these results.
But
okay.
Look,
our winner for the Unsung Hero of the Year was Blake Laurie. Congratulations, mate.
Well done, mate.
Yeah, no, look, fantastic footy player. If he's watching, come on the show. He seems like a legend.
Yeah, I do like him as well in terms of personality. He seems to speak his mind, and I don't mind a guy like that.
It's a good vibe, goes hard.
Moving on to the man in the box.
The man in the box.
Man in the box today.
Yeah, well, we're different kind of video, all right?
Yeah. Commander-in-Chief. Large and in charge, some say.
Are you going to start with nominations, or are we... All right, I'm going to step in for Miles here. Nominations are Kevy Walters at the Broncos led that resurgence. Andrew Webster made something out of the Warriors. We've got Adam O'Brien. Look, he did crazy things at the Knights. He's been re-signed as well. And then Ivan Cleary at the Panthers. He's just always in there because his systems and his coaching just get them to another level. The fan vote, somewhat predictably, because the Broncos and the Warriors fans seem to be stalking this page. They definitely were at the start of the year when I called the Warriors spooners.
But we agree with them.
Andrew Webster, they voted for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've also voted for Andrew Webster.
Congratulations to the man in the box, Andrew Webster.
The man in the box today, Andrew Webster. Woo! He is a sexy human. You know, a bit of ginger in your.
Women find accomplishment attractive, and he's accomplished great things. So,
well
congratulations!
Successful season for Andrew Webster.
I'm going to move on from that and just slice in here with the fullback of the year.
I like that kind of chat. Keep going.
Some electrifying guys: Reece Walsh, Scotty Drinkwater, Dylan Edwards, and Kalen Ponga. Now, I want to talk through these guys each. So Reece Walsh won our signing of the year. He was scintillating. He made a big difference to the Broncos' attack. Bit in and out, with his swearing at the referees. That I still get a comment every day on the TikTok I posted about that, saying he wasn't talking to the ref. He was talking to the ref.
Maybe we should get the ref on the phone.
He'd be pretty diplomatic. Scotty Drinkwater, he had a tough start to the year and he heated up down the stretch. Through Origin, he nearly carried the Cowboys into the finals.
I wish he had.
Dylan Edwards, he started really strong this year. Early season form was fantastic. Cooled off for mine and didn't quite step up in terms of attacking creativity the way I was hoping he would when Cleary was out for a while. But still had a great year. Just not quite the difference maker in my eyes compared to these other guys. And Kalen Ponga, look, first 10 rounds were a disaster. And then the back end of the season was one of those fullback runs where, it was Jared Hayne 09, it was Tommy Turbo 2021. And to combine that with the start of the season he had, it's very hard to judge, right?
I think if you asked me as well 12 months ago to give you the same category, we'd have 4 different names there.
That's actually absurd. Yeah, because we'd have Latrell, Teddy, Turbo, and Pappenhausen probably.
Yeah, Paps was probably injured at that point in time, but maybe Gutherson as well. I think Gutho.
To be fair, I think Gutho had a good year.
The fact that we have 4 different fullbacks that are stepping up at the moment. Maybe Dylan Edwards is the consistent guy there, but he almost went to another level this year. I'd say. Impressed me a lot, especially on the back of 2 premiership wins in a row. Like to come in and still do the same thing each and every day. Scotty is my guy. The guy that I thought would carry us into the finals. He just faded a little bit too late in the season and just couldn't get us over the line. But I don't know. In this one, the fans also went with Reece Walsh.
Oh my God! Hello,
the Broncos and
fans.
Warriors fans love our page. So
they're getting lucky today because a lot of their players are winning, and this award is no different. Fullback of the year, Reece Walsh. Look, cracking season for him. One of the best signings in the comp. He's won a couple of awards now, so that's a great win for him. Miles, I want you to jump into the halfback of the year before we go into our final award.
This category is pretty near and dear to my heart. Always thought of myself as too big to play halfback if I was...
You're a Felitti Mateo type.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it. We've got the general, the master of ceremonies, Mr. Pressure himself. Halfback of the year, and the nominations this year, Nicho Hynes gets in there for me. We have Adam Reynolds, Sean Johnson, and Daly Cherry Evans.
Yeah, I mean, DCE, he started a bit indifferently and really warmed up down the stretch. I thought he was very, very good when Turbo went out, which for mine, it's that big step up when he needs to step up. He's a very diverse player. He can sort of steer the team around, or he can be a bit more creative. So I was really impressed by DCE. Sean Johnson, that's a hard one. I mean, he won our Fantasy Player of the Year award as well.
You don't need to say words about Sean Johnson.
SJ is SJ. Yep. Adam Reynolds, look, I think the difference he made to the Broncos when he joined last year can't be understated, and he's just continued to be that guy for them. So he's in great form. And then Nicho Hynes. Nicho
had a great start to the year. Like, I will say that he spent those first 3 games out and then went on an absolute tear. To get selected for Origin, we can't forget that he played well enough to be selected for Origin, albeit not in the right position. He should have started at 5'8". And ever since he got put in for about 7 minutes in that first Origin game, his confidence hasn't been the same.
No, I agree. And I think he would have been a good combo with Moses or Cleary. Because Hines isn't that kicking game. He's more that creative spark. He's a 6/1
No, he
type of half.
can do it. Like, it's one of those things like where he can
But if
kick.
you got to have, though, I think you have to have that pinpoint kicking game next to him. So your DCE, your Nathan Cleary, your Mitch Moses type.
Yeah.
But I think he should have been in the team at 6
Yeah.
from the start.
The
him
biggest-
or Cody Walker.
Yeah, the biggest knock on him at the moment is that he hasn't won a finals game, and yet he's been considered the best player in the comp last year, won the Dally M. Like, I think if we were doing this award 12 months ago, we'd have to heavily consider him for Dally M as well, or the ultimate Kaji. But it's one of those things where he just, again, failed late in the season, and there's going to be a lot of people talking about this list with no Cleary on it. And I think we should maybe give a few reasons to the viewers why we didn't put Nathan Cleary on this list. I think there's arguments for guys like Moses as well. I think Moses had a very good year, ended up playing Origin as well, but just had that injury towards the back end of the year and couldn't get the Panthers into the finals. Couldn't get the Eels into the finals.
No,
Sorry.
I thought Moses had one of his better seasons this year.
Yeah.
I thought he was really tough. I thought he led the team around when Dylan Brown was out really well. Para just didn't get it done. So, yeah, and Cleary was injured quite a few times this year. Again, if we were looking at the best player in the comp, it's Cleary. But if we're looking at the best halfback this year, let us know. I mean, who is it?
Got a few people that might argue with you for best player in the comp. But this year, the fan vote went to Sean Johnson. Another Warriors or Broncos player.
Hey, Warriors fans.
Actually, but
I want just before we go into this, comment below if you're a Warriors or a Broncos fan, because I want to know who we have more of.
Yeah, and we'll take a nice census there. It'll be good.
Yeah.
He dominated the vote, though. He got 81% of the fan vote. So I think it's only fair that we give halfback of the year to the man, the myth, Sean Johnson.
Shawnee J.
Honestly, what a resurgence from this kid. And I say kid, he's 33 years old. But it's one of those things where you love to see him doing well because he's such a good bloke. Like, you can see it at the end of interviews now. If you take me back, I think maybe 2 years ago, you'd see Sean Johnson at the end of the game. It was maybe a game they lost. He looked depressed, man.
Yeah.
Like, he looked like he was not having a good time. He looked like he fell out of love with the game. And then this year, you could just see him at the end of interviews. He's like, yeah, man, I'm just playing my best. His smile on his face. He loves playing football, and I love watching him, man.
It's crazy how he has transitioned from being that explosive, sort of unreliable, but highlight reel 6 to being that super reliable 7 who still has those explosive plays in him. So it's a hard thing to do, and it took Benji Marshall a bit of time to do that. He didn't do it to the level of Sean Johnson, for example. Most players can't make that transition. It took Sean a bit of time, but he has well and truly made that transition. Now, the Ultimate Casual Athlete Award, Miles, can you tell us how this one's going to work? Because I'm looking at the run sheet, and we actually haven't decided who's going to win this one yet.
So for this award, the Ultimate Kaji, we need to assess, out of all the awards that we've given out today, who has been the best player in the comp this year? 2023, who is the Ultimate Casual Athlete? That is the question on our lips right now and on our minds. It's one of those things where, Dan, you and I have discussed back and forth over the years of who's the best player in the comp. And yeah, for this year, who are the guys that you're considering for this award?
All right, I mean, this is a bit behind the scenes because we're going to go through this live. I'm looking at this list, right?
Behind our sheet.
Going through the list here. Fanua Blake, he's in the conversation for sure. Preston, I wouldn't say best in the comp. Ezra Mam, I wouldn't say best in the comp. Fafita had a cracking year. Probably couldn't give it to him being outside of the finals. Reece Walsh is in the conversation. Hodjo probably doesn't win it. DWZ.
And the winner is... No.
Yeah, DWZ, Egan. DWZ, I think he was pretty top flight, but there were so many good wingers. Paddy Carrigan's in the conversation. I couldn't give it to a centre. Sorry, Herbie. Not the Bunnies.
I think we need to break it down to 4 people.
Okay.
And for me, I've got 4 guys.
Give me
I've
the
got
4.
Sean Johnson,
Yep.
Reece Walsh, Pat Carrigan, and Dallin Waterney-Zelezniak. Or Fafita.
No.
Fafita in there.
Look, the fourth one is sort of making up the numbers a bit. I think it's that first 3. And let's look at these guys, right? Sean Johnson, he took the Warriors to a different level this year. Pat Carrigan, the Broncos were the best middle in the comp and he was the leader of that middle third.
Yep.
And who's our third guy here? Reece Walsh. He transformed the Broncos again as well in attack.
Yeah.
For mine, I'm leaning Sean Johnson. If we disagree, we'll rock off for this. But I'm leaning Sean Johnson just because they were so unexpected. They were so unexpected, and he didn't really have, like on paper, he didn't have the support in the spine that the Broncos boys did. So you look at Reece Walsh, and it's like you got Cobbo, you got Oates, Katoni Staggs, Herbie Farnworth, Adam Reynolds feeding you the ball, that forward pack. It's a good situation, right? You look at Carrigan, and you've got Flegler and Haas in the middle with you.
Yeah.
It's a good spot. Sean Johnson, coming to this year, it was like, is Tamari Martin going to start?
Yeah.
Is it going to be Volkman? Is it going to be, one of the other guys that was in contention there? Is Nickel Klogstad the fullback?
I
Or
think
is it
they'd
gonna
rather
Metcalf?
it be,
Is Wade Egan a starting hooker, or should we throw Lussick in there? Like,
Too many
Sean
questions.
had a lot of weight on his shoulders. So for me, it's Sean Johnson.
Yeah, I would argue that he almost didn't have that weight on his shoulders because when we were coming into the season, it was, is he even going to start?
Yeah.
That was the big question. And then Metcalf went down in preseason, and they hadn't actually really told anyone as to whether they were going to start Sean Johnson or anything like that. But I think we need to, it's pump. You thought I was going to go for the rock, paper, scissors.
I thought you were.
No, we're going to go with Sean Johnson for the ultimate casual athlete this year. Well done to Sean, and I can't think of a better guy to win this award. And now we're going to cross to Sean live. I'm kidding. We don't have that capability.
Gotcha.
Thank you guys so much for watching this year. We have had an incredible year here on The Casual Athlete. We are going to be continuing it into the off-season. Please make sure that you follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. The link is in the description. If you want to follow our sponsors as well, the link is also there. Please make sure that you like and subscribe. We bring out so much content each and every week here on the channel. And guys, we'll catch you on the next one.
And thanks for watching, guys. Look, last 12 months, 500 subs to nearly 6,000 on YouTube. So it's been an absolute rise. Next year's going to be bigger and better. We'll see you there.